Imagine what it must have been like for early immigrants jumping off along the Missouri River for California, across 2,000 miles, for them, of largely unknown territory, often called the Great American Desert. It wasn't just the arid deserts that confronted these westbound overlanders. The Sierra Nevada, that 400-mile-long mountain range, formed a natural barrier into central and northern California. Only a small number of American immigrants had settled in Mexican Alta California by 1840. Most of them came over the old Spanish Trail into Southern California, or by sailing ships to the few Pacific Coast ports. Some of the latter came by ship from Oregon country, like John Sutter and Peter Lassen. Our story is how overland wagon routes into Northern California were finally achieved after 1840, leading to the Bonanza of Trails that was the theme of the 2015 OCTA Convention in South Lake Tahoe. It's the story of how the unknown became known, how the insurmountable became surmounted. The epic begins with John Bidwell, an organizer and primary recorder for the Bidwell-Bartleson Party of 1841. They were the first immigrant party to enter Northern California over the Sierra Nevada, although their route in the vicinity of today's Sonora Pass has never been fully verified. 50 years later, Bidwell recollected that after leaving the Oregon Trail in the southeastern corner of later Idaho, quotes, "Our ignorance of the route was complete. We knew that California lay west, and that was the extent of our knowledge." Remarkably, after abandoning their wagons before reaching the Humboldt River, the Bidwell-Bartleson party stumbled into the San Joaquin Valley, reaching John Marsh's ranch after a 6-month journey. However heroic the effort, they had not found a viable way over the Sierra Nevada, but had proved the way across what became Nevada lay along the Humboldt River, which became the primary artery to California in following years. The next attempt to surmount the Sierra Nevada came in 1843 with a small immigrant party led by frontiersman Joseph Walker. Although he was able to refine the wagon route from Fort Hall to the Humboldt River, he too had to abandon their wagons on the east side of the southern Sierra near Owens Lake and enter the southern part of the Great Central Valley of California over what later became Walker Pass. But this roundabout route proved impractical for wagons. The big breakthrough came the next year. Upon reaching the meadows above the Humboldt Sink in 1844, Elijah Stevens' small wagon party encountered a friendly Paiute Indian leader whom the immigrants named Chief Truckee. Using sign language and drawings in the sand, he provided the Stevens party with directions on how to find a pass over the Sierra Nevada and accompanied an advance party to the river named after him, the Truckee River. Even with this vital information, the Stevens party struggled across the many crossings of the Truckee River and over the Sierra Nevada at what is now known as Stevens Pass above Donner Lake. Some of their wagons were ditched below the ascent, then snow caught up with them on the west side of the Sierra at today's Big Bend, where the able-bodied men left their remaining wagons with their families and pushed on to Sutter's Fort for relief. The wagons and families were retrieved early the next year. Despite this, the Stevens party had proved that wagons could make it over the Sierra Nevada in a direct western route to Sutter's Fort, a remarkable achievement. It took overland travel in 1845 and 46 to work out two major improvements: the Dog Valley roundabout that avoided the rocky upper Truckee River Canyon crossings, and the discovery of a better route over the Sierra Crest at Roller Pass, 2 miles south of Stevens Pass. Taken together, this became what we call the Truckee River Route or Truckee Trail. In 1846, for the first time, more immigrants came overland to California than Oregon, using the improved Truckee route. Then in 1848, 2 more routes into Northern California were open. One began in the summer of 1848 with mostly disbanded Mormon battalion members heading east to the Great Salt Lake Valley to rejoin their brethren after quenching their gold fever in the early gold diggings. They sought an easier way over the Sierra Crest than the existing Truckee route. Setting up a base camp in Pleasant Valley, southeast of Placerville, these Mormon trailblazers turned eastward, following along high ridges of the west side of the Sierra, over its crest at West Pass, descending the east slope over Carson Pass, and then following the Carson River to its sink. There the Mormons turned northwest and linked up with the main California Trail at the big bend of the Truckee River. Soon after, the Joseph Childs wagon party heading west along the Humboldt River, hearing about this new route, turned directly southwest at the Humboldt Sink across the 40-mile desert to link up with the Mormon route at the Carson River. This completed what we call the Carson River Route or Carson Trail. On their way east, along the Humboldt River route, these Mormon trailblazers passed a small wagon train rolling west, piloted by Peter Lassen. Lassen had in mind following the Applegate Trail, opened in 1846 to southern Oregon, as far as Goose Lake in northeastern California, and blaze a new wagon trail along the Pitt River corridor to his ranch in Sacramento Valley, north of present Chico. This route became known as the Lassen Trail. Peter Lassen's trailblazing had worn down his small wagon party. They became dispirited and depleted of provisions 50 miles short of his ranch. Fortunately for Lassen and his disgruntled party, at this point they were rescued by a large wagon train of vigorous Oregonians, captained by Peter Burnett. They had been following Lassen's wagon tracks since coming upon them where the Pitt River turned south into Big Valley, west of Alturas. Decades later, Peter Burnett, who became the first elected governor of the new state of California, wrote that coming upon Lassen's tattered wagon train, quotes, "I never saw people so worn down and so emaciated as these poor immigrants." Peter Burnett's success lay in finding a 50-mile shortcut between the Applegate Trail at Tule Lake, just south of the Oregon-California border, and Lassen's new trail at Big Valley. For the first time, this cutoff allowed wagon travel between the Oregon Territory and California. Before the Burnett cutoff, the only land access between Oregon and Northern California were on pack trails along the corridor of modern Interstate 5, sometimes called the Oregon to California Trail. The significance significance of these three main northern trails, the Truckee, Carson, and Applegate-Lassen, all in position by the late summer of 1848, lay in their accessibility for the onslaught that was to come the next year, the overland gold rush that within 2 decades would transform the western United States. It should be noted that by this time there was a fourth immigrant wagon route into California by way of the Southern Trail. It was opened through the Southwest into Southern California in 1846 by the U.S. Army during a war with Mexico and improved in 1848. It funneled down to the Gila River and Yuma crossing of the Colorado River and on to the pueblos of San Diego and Los Angeles. This Southern Trail took an equal number of immigrants in 1849 as did each of the three northern routes, perhaps 8,000 to 10,000 each. Even with these three trails available to gold rushers pouring overland into northern California, suffering and deprivation was unavoidable. Gripping accounts abound of toiling hardships. All three trails had their waterless desert stretches, difficult mountain passes, dense forests, river crossings, and rocky trails. What saved the latter part of the overland migration from greater loss of life was the U.S. government-financed relief operations, especially on the Lassen Trail. In his final report to General Smith, who was the military governor of California, in later 1849, Major Rucker, who was in charge of the Lassen Trail relief, commented on the tail end of the migration. Quotes, "A more pitiable sight I had never before beheld. There were cripples from scurvy and other diseases, women prostrated by weakness, and children who could not move a limb. In advance of the wagons were men mounted on mules who had to be lifted on or off of their animals, so entirely disabled had they become from the effects of scurvy." The trail story after the gold rush of 1849 is one of proliferation of trails and branches, with increased access to new mining camps and settlements in Northern California. In 1850, off the Truckee Trail, a wagon road was opened along the ridge from Bear Valley to the new diggings along Deer Creek that soon turned into the mining town of Nevada City, called the Nevada City Road. Much of this wagon road approximates modern Highway 20 to Nevada City. Off the Carson Trail in Carson Valley, a pack trail was opened over Daggett Pass, just south of Genoa. It went around the south end of Lake Tahoe, then called Lake Bigler, and pulled out of the basin over the rim and on to Georgetown, called the Georgetown Trail. About the same time, branching off the Carson Trail at Union Hill near present Pollock Pines, a wagon road was opened along a ridge that took wagons in a more direct route to Placerville, along the corridor of today's Highway 50. This shortened wagon route most likely was opened by John Calhoun Johnson, who had come overland in 1849 and established a ranch and immigrant stopping place 6 miles east of Placerville. These two Carson Trail branches in 1850 were sorely needed. By the 1850 overland migration year, word had gotten back east to an even greater number of immigrants heading west that of the 3 trails into Northern California, the Carson Trail was by far the best. As a result, up to 90% of the immigrant traffic took the Carson Trail and its two branches in 1850. Surprisingly, 1851 was a non-migration year for the Northern California trails. Where the 1850 overland migration to Northern California had numbered as many as 45 to 50,000, the 1851 migration plummeted to around 1,200. What happened? After 2 years of accumulated experience on the gold rush trails and in the mines, depressing reports made their way back to the States. Perhaps 3 out of 4 wagons had been abandoned by the time immigrants had reached their destination settlements in Northern California. Cholera and eventually scurvy had taken their toll in human life. Once in the mines, most gold seekers had to labor long and hard under all sorts of deprivations to eke out a living. That soured those eager for quick riches, but not for long. Later in 1851 and early 1852, the word got back east about new gold discoveries which eclipsed the previous dismal reports about conditions along the trails and in the mines. In 1852, the overland migration was even larger than in 1850. To meet this resurgence, 9 new trails or branches were opened into Northern California. An inventory of these trails follows from north to south. Branching off the Applegate Trail in northeast California was the 70-mile-long Wairika Trail, to what one report called, quotes, the richest square mile on earth, at Wairika Flats in modern Wairika. Moving south, the promoter and explorer William Nobles opened another branch off the Applegate Trail at Black Rock Spring on the Black Rock Desert. It extended west and southwest over the Smoke Creek Desert to Honey Lake Valley. From there, his new route turned west and northwest to follow a short distance over the earlier Lassen Trail, but in the opposite trail direction, and then again turned westerly across today's Lassen Volcanic National Park to Shasta City, near modern Redding, which was a supply hub for the northern mines. There Nobles proposed to the merchants of Shasta City, for a modest fee, quotes, to open a good wagon road from this place to the Humboldt River, which will be shorter and in every respect more practicable than any other known overland immigrant route into California. The merchants quickly endorsed Nobles' new route, which became known as the Nobles Trail. The near-dormant Truckee Trail got a reprieve in the form of 2 new branches. The first actually was opened in 1851 by the colorful frontiersman Jim Beckworth and named after him. The Beckworth Trail took immigrants in an arching northern curve from Truckee Meadows at present Sparks to the gold discoveries at Bidwell Bar, now under Lake Oroville. The second branched off the Truckee Trail in Hope Valley, just north of present Stampede Reservoir, and headed westward along ridges with branches to various mining camps like Downeyville and Nevada City, and ending at Marysville. This wagon road was named after a rancher at Jackson Meadows, Patrick Hennis, who opened it to immigrant wagon use over a low pass, hence the name Hennis Pass Road. Continuing south to the Carson Trail, there were a host of branches opened in 1852. 2 were failures after a year or two, and 3 others were successful. In the former category was the Walker River Sonora Trail, branching off the Carson River near later Fort Churchill, and heading southwest to Columbia and Sonora at the southern mines. This wagon trail was something of a scam and lasted only 2 years. Immigrants found it near impossible to follow the supposed doable wagon route over the Sierra Nevada, just north of present Yosemite National Park. The other short-lived branch off the Carson Trail was the Placer County Immigrant Road from Eagle Valley, at soon-to-be Carson City, north to Lake Washoe, and then west over the Carson Range along the north shore of Lake Tahoe. From the lake, the road took up and along ridges to a number of mining camps and eventually Auburn. As a branch overland trail, this one lasted only 1 year, after severe winter storms and landslides destroyed the eastern end of the wagon road. 3 Carson Trail branches of 1852, however, proved lasting. The most significant and enduring was the Johnson Cutoff that branched off the Carson River in the aforementioned Eagle Valley. During 1850-51, John Calhoun Johnson, now teamed up with his Delaware Indian friend Fall Leaf, had been exploring eastward from his ranch with the intent of finding a less arduous route over the Sierra Nevada, one that would bring immigrants by his ranch and newly built hotel known as 6 Mile House. Using ridges in parts of the earlier Georgetown Pack Trail, the exploring pair worked their way around the south end of Lake Tahoe Basin to Eagle Valley. Johnson and Fall Leaf were aided by 4 enterprising miners who in 1851 had built a ranch trading post called Eagle Station at what will become Carson City. They too had an interest in finding a more direct route from their new trading post to Placerville. The details are somewhat vague, but from both ends of the cutoff, some basic road grading and bridge building took place in early 1852. By the summer migration of that year, a rough wagon route was ready from Eagle Valley. It went through Kings Canyon, over present Spooner Summit on Highway 50, along the east slope of the Tahoe Basin, over Johnson Pass, now Echo Summit, on the west side of the basin, and then along ridges to intersect the Carson Trail at Union Hill. Here Johnson's 1850 Ridge Road took immigrants by his 6 Mile House and on to Placerville. The Johnson Cutoff had an advantage over the Carson route of being shorter and over lower elevations. The 2 other shorter branches of 1852 were the Volcano Road and Grizzly Flat Road, both to burgeoning mining camps. These 2 wagon roads were promoted and most likely improved by merchants in the respective mining camps. The longer Volcano Road branched off the Carson Trail west of Tragedy Springs, where the Carson route turned northwest onto Iron Mountain Ridge, now the Mormon Immigrant Trail paved road. From this trail junction, the Volcano Road continued southwest along a ridge, now topped with Highway 88, onto other ridges to the mining town of Volcano, 15 miles northeast of Jackson in Amador County. The town is in a bowl-shaped valley that miners thought resembled a volcanic crater, hence the name. The Grizzly Flat Road branched westward off the Carson Trail on Iron Mountain Ridge at Leak Springs, an immigrant stopping place, The wagon road followed ridges for 20 miles to Grizzly Flat, which sits on a wide ridge between the north and middle forks of the Cosumnes River in El Dorado County. The name derived from a group of early miners whose dinner was interrupted by a large grizzly bear. After the splurge of 1852, overland traffic to California began slowly tapering off. The composition of travelers also shifted, from predominantly males seeking riches to take back home, to families intending to settle permanently outside of the gold fields. Also, by the latter part of the 1850s, overland travel became less risky and more predictable, with trading posts, ranches, and station stops increasingly springing up along the Humboldt River route and the trail branches into California. This overview of the Bonanza of Trails into Northern California ends with the last two opened after 1852. The first is the short Luther Pass Trail that connected the Carson Trail at Hope Valley with the Johnson Cutoff at the base of Johnson Pass along the corridor of present Highway 89. Increasingly, settlers in Carson Valley were concerned that the advantages of the Johnson Cutoff were siphoning off lucrative immigrant and commercial traffic from entering their valley by way of the Carson Trail. To meet this challenge, in 1854, a settler by the name of Ira Luther drove his wagon from Hope Valley west and then north over a low pass to the base of Johnson Pass. In so doing, Luther got a pass and a trail named after him. This short trail had the advantage of linking the Carson Trail with the Johnson Cutoff and thereby bypassing some of the more rugged cutoff sections from Eagle Station to South Lake Tahoe. The second trail after 1852 was the Big Tree Road that was opened in 1856 by merchants in Murphy's and nearby Angel Camp. Their intention was to entice immigrants on the Carson Trail to branch off at Hope Valley in a south and southwest direction to the southern mining camps. The Big Tree in this trail name refers to the majestic giant sequoia redwood at Calaveras Big Trees State Park, which is on the route of the Big Tree Road. By the later 1850s, road building shifted from opening new wagon roads in northern California to improving and relocating sections of existing wagon roads. For example, to the north, on the Nobles Trail, a more direct route across the southern end of the Black Rock Desert, beginning at Rabbit Hole Springs, was found in 1854. Then in 1855, an alternate route was opened north of the rougher route across the Lassen Volcanic National Park. This alternate route followed along the corridor of present Highway 44 over the Hat Creek Rim. Perhaps the best example of these later 1850s road improvements occurred on the Johnson Cutoff. In several construction stages, the original cutoff that had used higher ridges on the north side of the South Fork American River was realigned and lowered to eventually conform closer to the corridor of present Highway 50. Then a major improvement came in 1858 with the construction of Hawley Grade that connected the Luther Pass Trail to the summit of Johnson Pass in a gradual ascent, thereby eliminating the original steep 3/4 mile ascent of 1,000 feet. However, the big game changer came a decade after the overland gold rush began, with another discovery that would alter this bonanza of trails. It was the Comstock Lode silver and gold strike in 1859 that quickly led to the establishment of Virginia City in Nevada Territory. California miners flocked eastward over the Sierra Nevada to Virginia City, primarily over the improved Johnson Cutoff. This was followed by a realignment of some of those trans-Sierra immigrant trails and roads into all-season west-to-east freighting and stagecoach roads, mostly financed by tolls. But that's another story that goes beyond the original Bonanza of Trails.